Hey, I'll continue reading The Diary of Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl. During my last read, I merely read two entries. It was barely, uh, Anne, Anne had just barely begun and was talking about his school, his classmates. Yeah, I'll continue. Saturday, 20th of June 1942. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me, not only because I've never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on neither I nor anyone else would be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Oh well, it doesn't matter, I feel like writing, and I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was, brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience. And since I'm not planning to let anyone else read this stiff-backed notebook, grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it probably won't make a bit of difference. Now I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend. Let me put it more clearly, since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world. And I'm not. I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. I've a throng of admirers keep who can't keep their adoring eyes off me, and who sometimes have to resort to using a broken pocket mirror to try and catch a glimpse of me. In the classroom, I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No, on the surface, I seem to have everything except my one true friend. All I think about when I'm with friends is having a good time. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer. And that's the problem. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide in each other. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately, they are not liable to change. This is why I've started the diary. To enhance the image of this long awaited friend in my imagination, I don't want to jot down the facts in this diary the way most people would do. But I want the diary to be my friend, and I'm going to call this friend Kitty. Since no one will understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge right in, I'll better provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. My father, the most adorable father I've ever seen, didn't marry my mother until he was 36 and she was 25. My sister Margaret was born in Frankfurt, a man in Germany in 1926. I was born on 12th of June 1929. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4. Because we are Jewish, my father immigrated to Holland in 1933. When he became the managing director of the Dutch Opekta company, which manufactures products used in making jam. My mother, Edith Hollander Frank, went with him to Holland in September, while Margaret and I were sent to Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Margaret went to Holland in December and I followed in February, when I was plunked down on the table as a birthday present for Margaret. I started right away at the Montessori Nursery School. I stayed there until I was 6, at which time I started first grade. In 6th grade, my teacher was Mrs. Cooperus, the principal. At the end of the year, we were both in tears as we said a heartbreaking farewell because I'd been accepted at a Jewish lyceum, where Margaret also went to school. Our lives were not without anxiety, since our relatives in Germany were suffering under Hitler's anti-Jewish laws. Oh, that time it was already happening. Okay, let me continue reading. After the programs in 1938, my two uncles, my mother's brothers, fled Germany, finding safe refuge in North America. My elderly grandmother came to live with us. She was 73 years old at the time. After May 1940, the good times were few and far between. First there was the war, then the capitulation, and then the arrival of the Germans, which is when the trouble started for the Jews. Our freedom was severely restricted by a series of anti-Jewish decrees. Jews were required to wear a yellow star. Jews were required to turn in their bicycles. Jews were forbidden to use streetcars. Jews were forbidden to ride in cars, even their own. Jews were required to do their shopping between 3 and 5 p.m. Jews were required to frequent only Jewish-owned barbershops and beauty parlors. Jews were forbidden to be out on the streets between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. Jews were forbidden to attend theaters, movies, or any other forms of entertainment. Jews were forbidden to use swimming pools, tennis courts, hockey fields, or any other athletic fields. Jews were forbidden to go rowing. Jews were forbidden to take part in any athletic activity in public. Jews were forbidden to sit in their gardens or those of their friends after 8 p.m. Jews were forbidden to visit Christians in their homes. Jews were required to attend Jewish schools, etc. You couldn't do this and you couldn't do that, but life went on. Jack always said to me, I don't dare do anything anymore because I'm afraid it's not allowed. In the summer of 1941, Grandma got sick and had to have an operation, so my birthday passed with little celebration. In the summer of 1940, we didn't do much for my birthday either, since the fighting had just ended in Holland. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up for the others, and Grandma's candle was lit along with the rest. The four of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present date of 20th June 1942 and the solemn dedication of my diary. 20th, another entry, 20th June, Saturday, 1942. Dearest Kitty, let me get started right away. It is nice and quiet now. Father and Mother are out and Margaret has gone to play ping pong with some other young people at her friend Three's. I've been playing a lot of ping pong myself lately, so much that 5 of us girls have formed a club. It's called the Little Deeper -2. A really silly name, but it's based on a mistake. We wanted to give our club a special name, and because there were 5 of us, we came up with the idea of the Little Deeper. We thought it consisted of 5 stars, but we turned out to be wrong. It has 7, like the Big Deeper, which explains the -2. IOS Wagner has a ping pong set, and Wagner's lets us play in the big dining room whenever we want. Since we 5 ping pong players like ice cream, especially in the summer, and since you get hot playing ping pong, our games usually end with a visit to the nearest ice cream parlor that allows Jews, either Oasis or Delphi. We've long since stopped hunting around for our purses or money. Most of the time it is so busy in Oasis that we manage to find a few generous young men of our acquaintance or an admirer to offer us more ice cream than we could eat in a week. You are probably a little surprised to hear me talking about admirers at such a tender age. Unfortunately or not, as the case may be, this vice seems to be rampant at our school. As soon as a boy asks if he can bicycle home with me and we get to talking, 9 times out of 10, I can be sure he will become enamored on the spot and won't let me out of his sight for a second. His ardor eventually cools, especially since I ignore his passionate glances and pedal blithely on my way. If it gets so bad that they start rambling on about asking father's permission, I swerve slightly on my bike, my school bag falls, and the young man feels obliged to get off his bike and hand me the bag, by which time I've switched the conversation to another topic. These are the most innocent types. Of course, there are those who blow you kisses or try to take hold of your arm, but they're definitely knocking on the wrong door. I get off my bike and either refuse to make further use of their company or act as if I'm insulted and tell them in no certain terms to go on home without me. There you are. We have now laid the basis for our friendship until tomorrow. Yours, Anne. Sunday, 21st of June 1942. Dearest Kitty, our entire class is quacking in its boots. The reason, of course, is the upcoming meeting in which the teachers decide who will be promoted to the next grade and who will be kept back. Half the class is making bets. GZ and I laugh ourselves sick at the two boys behind us, CN and Jack's Cosenut, who have staked their entire vacation savings on their bet. From morning to night, it's "You're going to pass? No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not." Even G's pleading glances and my angry outbursts can't calm them down. If you ask me, there are so many dummies. If you ask me, there are so many dummies that about a quarter of the class should be kept back. But teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. Maybe this time they will be unpredictable in the right direction for a change. I'm not so worried about my girlfriends and myself. We'll make it. The only subject I'm not sure about is math. Anyway, all we can do is wait. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart. I get along pretty well with all my teachers. There are 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. Mr. Kissing, the old 4G who teaches math, was mad at me for the longest time because I talked so much. After several warnings, he assigned me extra homework, an essay on the subject a chatterbox. A chatterbox, what can you write about that? I'll worry about that later, I decided. I jotted down the assignment in my notebook, tucked it in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. That evening, after I finished the rest of my homework, the note about the essay caught my eye. I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen. Anyone could ramble on and leave big spaces between words. But the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. I thought, and suddenly I had an idea. I wrote the three pages Mr. Kissing had assigned me and was satisfied. I argued that talking is a female trait and that I would do my best to keep it under control, but that I would never be able to break myself of the habit, since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and that there's not much you can do about inherited traits. Mr. Kissing had a good laugh at my arguments, but when I proceeded to talk, my way through the next class, he assigned me a second essay. This time it was supposed to be on an incorrigible chatterbox. I handed it in, and Mr. Kissing had nothing to complain about for 2 whole classes. However, during the 3rd class, he finally had enough. Anne Frank, as punishment for talking in class, write an essay entitled "Quack, Quack, Quack," said Mistress Chatterback. The class roared. I had to laugh too, though I nearly exhausted my ingenuity on the topic of chatterboxes. Alright, I will stop here. Continue in another episode. See you. Goodbye.